So we are going to study carbons and carbonicums. See, there are two different components which we are going to have understanding on this process. So carbon and carbonicum. So carbonicum is something that the part of carbon is attached with a different kind of elements. It can be different minerals, it can be certain kind of metalloids, or pure carbon which is come from the natures. So we have a natural carbon called as come from the plant kingdom or come from the vegetable point of view, that is called as CARBO VEGETABILIS. Carbon which come from the animal kingdom, that is called as CARBO ANIMALIS. And a different component, the pure form of carbon is, as you all know, the diamond, which is the purest 100% of the carbon and very tough and hard to break. So the Surat is the industries of diamonds, so everybody known to that. So we are dealing with the carbons. So today we are going with the carbonicum, basic group studies. So we all know that it is naturally abundant as a non-metallic elements, and I rightly said that it is inorganic and organic compound. All compound is composed of carbon. Without carbon, one cannot survive. So carbon is the necessity of everything. Apart from the oxygens, the carbon is the, again, what we call as husband-wife relationship. So if both have to survive, that they have to be there. So carbon and oxygens. So when we breathe ourselves, so we take the oxygen inside and carbon comes out. So this is what we have abundant of carbons in our life. And the atomic number in a periodic table is 6 and it is tetravalent. So that means it is of that 4 electron is attached with the carbon and it forms a different components of the carbon. So pure carbons and carbonates. So I rightly said that the pure carbon is CARBO-VEG, CARBO ANIMALIS, carbolic acid, carbonium sulf, petroleum and graphites. These are the pure form of the carbon. Whereas again marble is also pure form of carbons. Another is the creosote. It is also pure form of carbons. Another remedy which comes into this carbon group, it is called as upion. Okay, it is called as a remedy prepared from the wood tar. It is a pure form of carbon and it is a tar. So it is a wood tar. It was not mentioned in this presentation, but upion, I will let you know the importance of upion in the clinical practice. Carbonates. So in a carbonate form we have ammonium carb, baryta carb, magnesium carb, natrum carb, calcareous carb, strontium carb and chlor carb. So this is what just highlighting point of pure carbon and carbonates. So let's study what is the role of carbon in our body. So it displays O2 from blood to the body. See what happens when we inhale. O2 goes inside, again from O2 the carbon comes out, so it displays the O2 and it goes out, blood from the body. So this is what it is helping in the process called as respiration. And without respiration, without prana, no animal or human can survive. So this is what the basic importance is, the air and earth is the importance of the constitutions. When we have a carbon accumulating in body, what we call as, when the carbon is more accumulated in body, what we call as a emergency department, we have respiratory acidosis and metabolic alkalosis. So metabolic alkalosis represents that there is carbonate is accumulated into our body and which lead into development of the respiratory alkalosis, respiratory acidosis. It's the vice versa. Okay, so in that what happened, the respiration become disturbed, which we call as osmolar respiration, cane stroke respirations, and this is what condition called as air hunger. So when you find last stage of patient presentations and they started having air hunger, you can think of the carbon is the hunger, because the basic role of carbon is like this. So most of the when we comes into contact with this understanding of this remedy, we have the air hunger in process. So air hunger as a constitutions. So we have to understand the carbon as a pure form. So when we understand the carbon as a pure form, we have to understand the charcoal. So charcoal can be derived from the two components, either from the vegetable form or either from the animal form. So what is charcoal? When the wood get burns and finally the black part of that remain, that is called as a charcoal. So what is that charcoal? The charcoal has a capacity that it is not flaming. So wood has flame. When wood got burns, it becomes black like a carbons. So there is no flame inside. But the charcoal has capacity to again flame itself, but not like a wood. You know, like a fire. But there is a slow simmering type of fire. And that fire requires what? When you give air to that things, then that fire gets blown up, again it simmers, blown up, again it simmers, blown up, again it simmers. So this is something the charcoal characteristic is slow and simmering. You know, so fire just simmers. Without blowing the air, the fire cannot come. Again blow, then it become brighter. When you cannot blow, become again subsides. So this is what something called as a lingering fire. So when there is a lingering fire, same thing happening into our human body also. When the carbon is accumulated in our body, say for example in metabolic alkalosis. So what happens? Our body gets slow, our vitality gets down. So there is a process of homeostasis become down, and there is a slowness, and the conditions get not healed properly. So this produce lead to the lingering of complaints. You know. Now how it happens? So initially there is a flame. So fast flame goes into simmering, and simmering goes into slowness. So this is what something happen when you find acute life-threatening disorders, acute life-threatening illness into patients, and that patients finally end up with the slowness, sluggishness, and lingering of that chronicity of complaint, laxness, looseness, and everything. Then you can think of carbon as a remedy. You know, carbon, you cannot find pure soric state of carbons. Many a time in your clinical entry point or in your clinical applications of the carbon, you must find always a psychotic or a syphilitic state of carbon only. No pure soric form of carbon. You cannot prescribe carbon in an acute soric stage, except some of the gastric ailments. But that gastric ailment is also has a part of psychosis, because there is a slowness, sluggishness leading to the accumulations, irritations, gaseous discharge, offensiveness. So this is what something when you find acute life-threatening disorder. Say for example, if a patient suffer from dengue, and after he recover from dengue, he develop hypertension. You know, this is something called as a different variant, but this is a slow sluggishness of the process. Sometimes a patient having a acute fever, viral fever, and goes with the varicosities of the vein and swelling, chronic. So when you find this kind of personality, the person suffering from the typhoid, and after typhoid patient becomes slow, sluggish and obese, and no vital activity is going on, you can think of. So when you find never well since from certain disorders which is acute life threatening. Say for example, nowadays we have acute COVID. So the person who suffering from after COVID, many patient comes up, बहुत થાક લાગે છે, કઈ મજા નથી આવતી, મૂડ નથી આવતો, બહુ વીકનેસ લાગે છે. કોવિડ થયો ત્યાર પછી છે ને શરીર આખું બદલાઈ ગયું છે. So that is something called as an acute life threatening condition goes into pure psychosis. You can think of carbo. Are you getting me? So what is that? The fire get extinguished if there is no air. So fire is gone. Burns quietly, producing ash which is not easily shed off. See, you have to understand incense stick. So what is incense stick is, when you fire that, there is a fire, then slow lingering simmering fire is going on, and above that fire there is a ash is developing, and that ash is attached to that part only. You know, once you blow, then fire flames, again it goes into simmering. So in formation of the charcoal, when the fire is settled in the jungle, char remain in the wood. So what is that? They want air in motions, because without air they cannot again blow. So this is what something that want air in motion or want fan in need. So most of time we need this process. So what happens when this happen into our body? If we are air hunger, or if we become slow, so what happens? Our vitality gets formed into this following categories. So what following category? There is a slowness of activity. Slowness of activity at the level of homeostasis. So homeostasis lead to the first is circulations. A, B, C, we have to understand airway, breathing and circulation. So what happens? Airway goes more accumulation of carbon, so there is a low vitality. Slowness of the circulation, slow metabolic activity. So when there is a metabolism is slow, what happens? The development of the ATP is less. So there is no generation of the heat. So heat is become less. So they want again heat also. So there is no heat, so there is something. See, there is no light, so there is darkness. So same way there is no heat, there is something called as coldness. So coldness predominates. And that coldness predominates is the most commonest form of the carbon. So most carbons are chili, most carbons are air hunger. Again, when you put a coal and apply some water in it, absorbs that. So what is that? It has a tendency to absorb everything, either moistures or bad odors. So initial stage of life in 90s or in the 80s century, when the initiations of the refrigerations comes. So one problem is that when they put a food into refrigeration, there is a stale, a smell of stinky smell of vegetable. So to remove that smell, they put some charcoal into refrigeration. That charcoal can absorb every bad smell. So this is what absorption capacity. So due to that absorption capacity, they have a tendency called as they need water. They need to be thirsty. Exactly opposite to ammonium carb. Ammonium does not want water because water gets lodged into and they aggravate. So ammoniums are thirstless, whereas carbons are thirsty. Again, the same way this absorption capacity can absorb every disorders or bad odors. So in bad odors, it acts as a deodorant and it acts as a disinfectant. Okay. So basically, carbons at mental level are very timid, right-sided, anxious, money-minded, very slow development of the disease. So when a person comes to you, they say that આપણે પૂછે કે since how long you are suffering from? So patient said, sir, I had this eczema since 20 years. I have this swelling of my lower limbs and there is a small veins which is looking like a varicose since 20 years. So we asked, what was happened 20 years back? So he said that I had pneumonia, I had typhoid, and after that typhoid this happened. But okay, I am okay with that, but my activity gets slow. So this is what something they are very slow in development of the disease. You know, the side is very important for our understanding. So right side. So when there is a right sided, the left brain is active. So left brain represent a strongness. Left brain represent a logical, calculative mind. But being a right sided and a person's mentality is very timid, then you can think four remedy: calcarea, kali, carbons and derived. So in that we have to understand the carbon is the one of the component. Are you getting me? Again, when you think of money-minded remedy, you can think of calcarea, you can think of lycopodium, you can think of pulsatilla. You know, the arsenic, very money-minded remedy. So this is what a right-sided remedy, timid remedy. So most of right-sided remedy is more prone to the money, whereas left-sided is more prone to the emotions, arts. So to understand carbon, we have to understand that, we see that the slow development of the disease. So why this is slow development of disease? So when there is any major illness disturb the metabolism of the body. So when the person says never well since from that disease, and that leading to disturbances of the metabolism of the body. Say for example, person comes to it with the hypothyroidism. Hypothyroidism, and there is a slowness, obesity and tiredness, weakness, and patient says that sir मैंने dengue था तो then after 2 months I got diagnosed that I had a hypothyroidism. So this is what never since that acute illness. So metabolism get slow, disturbed. So reaction is what? Slow and lingering. So which leading to the development of the homeostasis process is stasis. When we have a word stasis comes into mind, we have the remedy comes into mind is sepia. As Mitholgas has mentioned in his book of sepia, that sepia represents stasis. So when we have a stasis, we have to combine with the sepia also. So sepia has also stasis, sepia has also looseness, same as carbon. But the sora of the sepia is different and the sora of the carbon is different. You know, sora of the sepia is existence. So they have to fight for existence. Being an animal remedy, they have a fighter kind of constitutions. Whereas being a carbon remedy is a very slow lingering process is going on which leads to stasis and sluggishness. No fighting. They want just safety and security. I don't want to fight. So this is the sora is safety. Whereas in a sepia the sora is existence. So they mean to be a very weak. They mean to be a very weak immune system and not get back easily. Sir, इसका immune system वो बीमारी हुआ तब से ये ठीक हुआ ही नहीं है. That is what the word patient is telling to you. Weak immune system since that illnesses. So most of time when you find never well since. So when you find never well since puberty, we have pulsatilla. Never well since menopause, you have graphites, lachesis, semicifuga, every remedy which we thought of. Okay. Never well since that burns, we have a causticum. Never well since that pneumonia, we have a CARBO veg, calicab. Never well since of typhoid, we have again CARBO veg. So this is what never well since from that acute inflammatory disorders. Are you getting me? So stasis. Now what stasis represents? Stasis of all metabolic activity. So most of our metabolism goes into slowness. So what happened? It produces slowness at different level. Specifically at our major system called as cardiovascular systems, gastrointestinal systems, and in the body as well as in the mind. So it represents the miasm hypopsychosis. Sorry. The process of hypopsychosis at the level of genetics. So how hypopsychosis represented particular system as well as particular part of the body as well as at the level of mind. So we have to understand. So response of the cells. So every cells respond in a particular genetic pattern. So we understand the genetic level that it is a hypocytosis, and hypocytosis leading to slowness. So what happens at the level of cellular level? There is a slow inactivity. So what is the metabolism of the cell become slow? So when the metabolism of the cell becomes slow, what happens? There is a low energy, low vitality, okay, no storage of energy. So when there is a no storage of energy, what they need? They need more something. So they started accumulating something. But again, accumulations can lead to the process of that the nutrition cannot be utilized, because they also accumulate where source of. So nutrition get stopped. So there is a slowness of nutrition. When the nutrition is slow, ATP is slow. So what happens? The response becomes slow. The reaction becomes very slow. And to that, there is something that is called as the synthesis is also slow, and excretion is also slow. So this is what cellular mechanism. So there is a synthesis of the slow protein, and there is a slow excretions of certain waste products. So this is what a cellular response because of the genetic pattern called as hypocytosis. So miasm is psychosis as a defense used by the carbon. Thus we have the word, we have to understand carbon by these few words, that is slowness, stasis, thickening, induration, tumor and hardness. So this is something called as we have to understand a miasmatic perspective of the inner cellular defense mechanism. Are you getting me? So this is what thickening and induration happen because of excess of fibrin. Tumor, hardness, excess of fibrin. Stasis because of laxness of the elastins. So this is what slowness because of laxness of the elastin. So resulting in what happened when this pi component resulting into the process called a general slowness at the physical as well as mental level. So when the coal is there, you have to correlate with this. I advise you incense stick. You have to blow the incense stick, then it comes the light. Again it goes into simmer. So this is what there is a slowness. So you have to give more stimulus. Air is needed. So what carbon needs? Stimulus. She rightly said. Why carbon need more stimulus? Because there is a slowness of the process, metabolism. Okay. General slowness at the physical and mental level. So there is a slowness. It also accumulates many things into their cellular component. Condition as a body municipal system on the vacation. Say for example, as body municipal system is on a vacation. So that is on someone is on vacation, there is no working is going on. But there is only slowness. So when there is a slowness at the GIT, what happens? Accumulation of the food goes into, and that food cannot go down. So it ferment. It produces more and more gaseous things like carbons, and that carbon's fermentation goes into either upward going, it is called as eructation, and downward going, it is called as flatulence. So but the flatulence is because of slow excretions of the toxins. So that toxins also are more because it is accumulated inside more and more. So that lead to offensiveness. And again there is the more accumulation of the carbon into body, so that leads to the process called as air is more needed, because air is for the circulation to working on. So there is air in there. Are you getting me? So now what happened? It happened everything at connective tissue levels. So carbon act on connective tissue and it act on the blood vessels, bones, muscles, elastin, fibrins are affected. So all the structure or building block of the carbon. So because carbon is a component of everyone, there is everywhere the carbon is there. Because what we learn in the first slide, it is a component naturally abundant in every organic and inorganic cells. So this is what it happens most of in all the components. So what happened? There is a laxity of connective tissues. So these are all connective tissues: blood vessels, bones, muscles, elastins, fibrils. Sorry. So there is a laxity of connective tissue, which we called as a elastin less. So the reduced elastin, it is again a psychosis less. So low elastin protein, because low synthesis. What we see in response to the cellular level, the synthesis of the protein is low. Okay. So low synthesis of the protein, which lead to the laxity. And laxity at the level of body, at connective tissue particularly, it produces lax fiber. If it is at a muscular level, it produces lax fiber. It has a round ligament, it produces a prolapse conditions. At a venous level, it produces a piles. Again, it produces at a portal circulation, it is a sluggishness of circulations. And at the veins of the leg, it produces varicosity, because the veins of the musculatures of the veins become lax, so they become tortuous. So this is what varicosity. So this is called reduced elastins. Are you getting me? In GIT, what happens? Everything becomes slow down. So in slow down, there is a digestion becomes slow. So once the digestion becomes slow, the excretion becomes slow. So what happens? The process is called as constipation. So slow excretions of the dirt. When there is a dirt is accumulated somewhere, what happens? It produces offensiveness of discharge. So and the fermentation. So fermentation leads to the distension of the abdomen. So in respiratory tract, what happens? In a respiration, the respiration becomes slow. So when there is a respiration becomes slow, no exhalations of the carbon comes out. So there is offensiveness of the breath, because the toxin can be slowly comes out. So toxin is giving rise to the offensiveness, and in bargain they want more air. So respiration become different. Cosmos or Greenstock type of respiration. So there is a air hunger, and once the respiration is not proper, so this lead to the easy fatigability. So we have a weakness. In cardiovascular systems, so what we see, A, B, C, airway, breathing and circulation. So in a cardiovascular circulation, what happens? Slowness of the heartbeats. Because why slowness? The muscles of the heart, the fibrin and elastins of elasticity of the muscles becomes less. So the heart becomes relaxed, which we call as a cardiomegaly. And there is a slowness of the heartbeat, so which we call as a bradycardia. Sluggish circulation, due to slowness of the heart, the circulation becomes slow. So sluggishness of the circulation. So there is a sluggishness of circulation, along with there is a relaxed blood vessels. So when there is a blood vessel is relaxed and it cannot come back to the heart again. No, the heart has a mechanism that from heart to the peripheral part of the body and from peripheral part to the heart. So when the heart is pumping slowly to the peripheral part, from peripheral part it passively does not come to the heart. So what happens? The peripheral parts get more carbon dioxide. So that more carbon dioxide lead to the bluishness of the part, and that bluishness and cyanosis because lack of oxygenations, and finally lead to the process called as accumulation at the subcutaneous tissues, and it produces a capillary bleeds and a chymosis. So this is what you have to understand at the cardiovascular level. What happens in portal system? In a portal system, the less of elastin resulting into long standing hemorrhoids. So patient says 20 years, hemorrhoids since 20 years. I used to take medicines. There is a bleeding sometime, but I had 20 years of hemorrhoids. So this is what long standing less of elastin resulting into hemorrhoids and varicose vein, may be because of slowness of portal circulation. And the bleeding is always passive. Okay, dark bleeding, always less. Another component at the particular level of a carbon group is a fibrin excess. So in a fibrin excess, see there is a two component. two protein synthesis. One is the elastin synthesis. So elastin is less synthesized, whereas the fibrin is more synthesized. Now why the fibrin is more synthesized? So when there is a slowness, they need to drop down. So to need to drop down, they have to hold something. So some protein is making that you have to protect them. So that protection, they are more in a fibrin form. So it produces hardness. So what happens? It covers the surface. So mostly it covers the skin. So in a skin it produces cones, callosity, colloids, and hardness of the skin. So most of time, why? Because they need safety, and in a safety for that, cells has get affected. So they produce it as a safety is not there. So I need to make it hard. So there is a hardness at the surface. Okay. Again, that happen at the blood vessels also. So in interior, see, blood vessels has a two component. One is the outer wall of the blood vessels. One is the intima of the blood vessels. So in the intima of the blood vessels, there is the accumulations of the fibrin, and it produces a narrow down of the blood vessels. Okay. Why? Because outer wall is relaxed. So there is accumulations, and blood has to flow. So body again produce inner wall is thickening, because if narrow करेगा तो ही आके जाएगा ना, नहीं तो जाएगा नहीं, क्योंकि बाहर से तो फुला दिया है. So that lead to again atherosclerotic changes. So there is a two component, relaxedness as well as atherosclerotic changes. Both are there in the same patients. You know. So this lead to the atherosclerosis and thickening of the blood vessels. Again, there is a mesodermal affections called as a gland. In a gland, it produces a hardness, because gland is for the protection. Gland gives a nutrition, nurturance. So in that there is an increase of proteins, and there is a hardness. Ischemia, again, what happens? The circulation becomes slow. So the brains get less of nutrition in terms of oxygenation, in terms of carbohydrates. So that lead to ischemia at the level of brain. So when there is a ischemia, what happens at the brain level? Brain cannot function properly. And if the brain cannot function properly, brain goes into shutdown or slowness. So this slowness represents at the brain level as forgetfulness, as weakness of the memory, or absent-mindedness. Are you getting me? How this fibrin excess lead to this process? Again, due to atherosclerosis, also there is a ischemia of the brain, and due to slowness of circulation, also there is a ischemia of the brain. So both things can lead to this process, and this leading to this forgetfulness, confusion, weakness, and absent-mindedness. So are you getting me? This why this ischemia of brain? It happen in both ways. Either in a elastin less or either in a fibrin excess. So what happens ultimately? The cells get less of stamina. So for cells has a weakness, tiredness, and fatigue. So most of the time every cellular function has these three components as a carbon. At a mental level, we have to understand the carbon is very conscientious type of remedy. So they are given into stage of anxiety in science of. It can be pure carbon or it can be carbonate also. So we have anxiety conscientious remedy are the ammonium carb, Helperia, CARBO ANIMALIS, CARBO VEGETABILIS, carbonium salt, graphites, black carb, and constant carb. Family, so it is a tetravalent, very strong bond with the hydrogen atom to build a number of organic and inorganic substances. Little apprehension in the beginning of the relationship, very attached to the family, because once the carbon bond is there, there is a permanent bond. So they are very attached to the family, want to live like family with everyone, because they want four bond and have sensitive to every relationship. So as organic component, we have to understand it has a four tetravalent. So it is like a family. So in a family they are very sensitive to every relationship. So what are the sensitivity? SORA. I said that the SORA of the carbon is very less, but when it goes into psychosis, it is a vast psychosis and finally end up into syphilis. So what are the SORA of this? The SORA of that is they are sensitive to horrible sad story like calcaria. They are easily frightened, and most of time the chronic sauropsychotic ailment is called as grief, which can lead to the obesity. So this is they are sensitive to these three things. So finally they end up with the slowness. So all carbons out of apprehensions and low energy, they goes into slowness, not able to move quickly and taking more time than usual, because it is something like a coal. So coal has something that it is burnt, but slowly. Okay. So that slowness is expressed at the level of mind also. So we have an expressiveness of inexpressiveness or expressiveness of the mental aspect. So slowness of to express. So it can lead to the introvertedness, and the introvertedness is all. So most of all carbon goes into state of introvertedness because of there is a timidity, because of there is a cowardiceness, because of there is a one of the apprehensionness in the soric state. So when you find this cowardiceness, apprehension and timidity, you can think of either a calcaria, you can think of either a beretta, you can think of either a silicia, you can think of the pulsatilla, you can think of the lycopodium also. But finally they land up into the psychosis, then you understand this is carbon. So this is what they are top rated in the tachycarnicity. That means talk indisposed to. So talk indisposed to alternating with the timidity. So when you think of timidity, we have a fourth big group: beretta, calcaria, kali, and the fourth one is carbon. And it is introverted. So expression is also goes into slowness, inexpressiveness. They express one thing called as anger, and that anger is expressed also is like in a timid way. The very important aspect of carbon is being a timid remedy. Their anger is also not expressed as like fire. It is also like a simmering. So in simmering anger is something the expressions change, and that expression is called as sarcasm. So we have to understand what is sarcasm. So the dictionary meaning of the sarcasm is the use of remark which clearly means the opposite of what they say, and which are made in order to hurt someone's feeling or to criticize something in a humorous way. I need to tell something, I need to criticize something, but not in a direct way. So if it is in a direct way, then it is something different way of presentation. And if it is in an indirect way of expressing anger or criticizing someone or need to say opposite of anything, it is called as sarcasm. Are you getting me what is sarcasm? If it is in a direct way, then it is called as contemptuous, it is called as slander. But it is in an indirect way, it is called as sarcasm. Are you getting me? Very easy. So in a Gujarati we call it as kataks. In Hindi it is called tana marna or vyang. Okay. So mocking or contemptuously ironic remark intended to wound another, but in a humorous way. Tend to sneer, ridicule and reproach others by cutting expressions or taunts in order to offend or wound another. So this is what the clear-cut intention. I need to tell anything directly, but I am not telling directly in terms, but I am giving in a taunt way, or I am giving in a different way of, but it is a humorous way. So the persons who hear that, we can understand that they are telling me, but everybody else in the world, they understand that this is just joke apart. So this is something called as mocking sarcasm. So we have mocking sarcasm, we have a 30 remedy. Out of 30 remedy, the carbon are the 3 marks in this sarcasm. So we have CARBO veg and the graphites. They express their anger in terms of sarcasm and mocking. Are you getting me? So let's have some video example of this. We have some video on understanding of just a sarcastic speech.
प्रधानमंत्री जी ने बीजेपी को मुखातिब करके एक शेर पढ़ा। उन्होंने कहा, हमको उनसे वफा की है उम्मीद जो नहीं जानते वफा क्या है। अध्यक्ष जी, आप जानती हैं शायरी का एक अदब होता है, शेर का कभी उधार नहीं रखा जाता। प्रधानमंत्री का ये उधार चुकता करना चाहती हूँ, एक नहीं 2 शेर पढ़ के। पहला, फिर उनसे उधार हो जाएगा। प्रधानमंत्री जी, कुछ तो मजबूरियां रही होंगी, कुछ तो मजबूरियां रही होंगी, यूं ही कोई बेवफा नहीं। और मजबूरी क्या है? हमारी मजबूरी ये है कि आप इस देश के साथ बेवफाई कर रहे हैं, इसलिए हम आपके प्रति वफादार नहीं है। और मुल्क के साथ बेवफाई करने के लिए दूसरा शेर पढ़ रही हूँ आपको मुखातिब करके। तुम्हें वफा याद नहीं, हमें जफा याद नहीं। जिंदगी और मौत के 2 ही तो तराने हैं, एक तुम्हें याद नहीं, एक तुम्हें याद नहीं।
See, are you understanding what the expressions of that parliament is? Something that they are representing. You cannot tell anything directly to someone else, but they are going to express in a different form. So most of political people goes into this state of called as sarcasm. Are you getting me? Another example of video I will let you know. This is the second video which will give you a beautiful insight. And look at the persons. See, this is a very comedian person, and he had expressed his feelings. But this is something, he is a comedian, so he expressed the process. But to understand the process of that he is telling, and for that we have to understand what sarcasm is. So let's begin.
अभी राजस्थान में कुछ साल पहले सलमान खान ने हिरण मार दिया। बेवकूफ आदमी, इतिहास की जानकारी नहीं करेगा तो यही होने वाला था। सलमान खान को मालूम नहीं था कि रामचंद्र जी हिरण मारने गए थे, बाद में कितने पापड़ बेले थे अगले। सारा झंझट हिरण मारने के बाद ही तो सुन था। उसकी सीता गई, इसकी ऐश्वर्या गई, उसकी तो वापस लौट गया, इसकी तो कोई उम्मीद भी नहीं रही। बेवकूफ था सलमान खान, हिरण मार दिया, जमानत नहीं हुई। आदमी मार दिया, उसी दिन जमानत हो गई। सरकार इस देश में आदमी की कोई कीमत नहीं, जिसे जब जहां चाहे जहां मार दो। सारे मानव अधिकार आयोग इस देश में दानवों को बचाने की चिंता करते हैं, मानवों को बचाने की कोशिश।
This is called as the biggest sarcasm on the government process. Are you getting me? What the expression is? See, they are not telling directly. So we have to understand the carbon is like this. So carbon always have expression of this. Whenever I used to teach the carbon, I always show this 2 video, and this 2 video gives me a very wonderful insight into understanding of sarcasm. And I had taken a lot of sarcasm in my clinic also, because patients will telling you sarcastically something, and you didn't understand. You said that patient is something doing like, but this is something sarcasm. They are working on you, but you can't understand. So you have to think over it. You have to make the process, make your mind very alert that why he is talking in this form, and that is what they are expressing. So when you find this kind of sarcasm, directly take the rubric mocking sarcasm. Out of this, enter another disposition, prescribe, you will get wonderful results. This is my clinical experience. Hope you got this. So carbon expressions at clinic is sarcastic. What carbon expressed at the physical level? So physical level having a depleted vital energy because of everything is slow. So there is a low combustion of the food. So low combustion of the food means the food got inside is digested slowly. So slow digestion leading to the slow conversion of the ATP. So there is a low ATP, and low ATP lead to the basal metabolic rate is going down. So when the basal metabolic rate is going down, what happens? The body start accumulating fat. So they goes into roundedness, they goes into obesity, they goes into fattiness. And this lead to what happen? Low BMR, low ATP. So when this low ATP and low BMR, the vital heat is low, and that finally lead to sluggishness and weariness. So most of the fatty people who are very sluggish, there are remedy, obese and yet active. The remedy is opium. Obese and yet active, the remedy is opium. Now mercury is there also, obese and active. What happened at mental level? See, due to this slowness, sluggishness, what mind tells? They are very down to earth, they are simple, matter of the fact approach to the life, uncomplicated intellect, not egoistic, no discipline. This is something at the mental level. So why? Because it is because of intellect got dull. So what happened? The mental dullness tendency which aggravate from mental exertion. So every exertion can lead to dullness. What happened in Barata Carb? Barata Carb is mentally dull. Calcarea Carb is calculation inability and mental exertion aggravate. Natrum Carb comprehension slow. Calcarea Carb carbo veg memory active only. Barata Carb, Calcarea Carb comprehension easy. So this is what dullness represent. There is a selflessness, not enough self and lack of confidence. So when you find selflessness, that means there is no identity. So identity is compromised. So there is confusion. So confusion of identity. So what carbon goes into confusion of identity? Gender identity disorders. So male get confused, I am male or female. Female get confused, I am female or male. So either they are effeminate or they are mannish. Both have the remedy is platina, and in the mannish there is a carbo veg also. So this is what there is selflessness. So in selflessness they have a theme of giving and doing. So they are duty and responsible, mostly found in Calcarea Carb. Sensitive to serve in a quieter way, very bold, like Natrum Carb, sensitive but serve in a quieter way, like incense stick. I am burning but I am giving a fluorescent smell to the environment. So this is, they are sensitive and quieter way. Duty plus give value to the truth. Kali Carb. Kali Carb has a feeling that moralistically I am a good, so my moral has to be maintained. Okay, so duty plus moral. Passive, look sweet, no reaction. But this is the Barata Carb. They are passive. Passive means they are totally dependent on someone else. There is no responsibility at all. So all are selfless except Calcarea Carb. Calcarea Carb are very selfish, very egoistic remedy. Most carbon activity aversion to, because slowness of everything, they don't want activity. Exertions aggravate. Only be a desire activity they do. જે જરૂર હોય એ કરવાનું. If it is needed, absolutely needed, then it can be do. These are the most indolent, most laziest of material. These are carbon. They are sensitive and affectionate. They have anticipations in a soric stage. But when they goes into psychosis, they become average because they are accumulating everything. Even dirt can they accumulate. This is averageness. They have a cares and worries full of. They are childish at the mental level, but their will is very coward and timid, and the expressions at the emotion level, they are very grief. So grief can lead to the psychosis. Most carbons are right-sided, fair complexions, tired, fatigue, laxity, affected on the skin and glands, air hunger. there is a representations reactions of coldness, collapse. When you find the collapse, in a collapse we have a camphor and carbo gas. So what happens in a collapse? In a collapse stage there is a coldness of the body. The coldness external, internal heat is lacking on in both carbo gas and camphor. But what happens? Carbo gas wants fanning when near, whereas in a camphor they want fanning. Again they want fanning, they got very chilliness, they off the fan, again there is a weakness, again there is a collapse. So when this is alternating state, chilliness alternate with coldness and then fanning on and off, you can think of camphor in the last stage. Whereas in a carbo gas there is a coldness, slowness, sluggishness, wants fanning from near. Are you getting me? So due to that there is a obesity and sun aggravation except strontium carb. Strontium carb is the remedy which is sun is the energy for them. So sun is ameliorating all complaint in strontium carb. So morally the carbons are very good. They are sympathetic, they are love family, they are affectionate, because in the spheric stage they want balance, bond and tetravalent. So they are very sympathetic towards 4 point. They are love families because they want bond from the everyone. They are affectionate, they are careful, charitable, responsible, religious, and they have sensitive to that. That's why they are affected by the grief. So we have a different remedy, calculi carb, graphites, nectrum carb, petroleum. So out of that moral. There is a bad moral. What bad moral? When they got hurt, they started going into one reaction called as sarcasm. So sarcasm is mostly expresses the anger. So in anger they are either abrupt, they goes into abusiveness, they goes into cruelty, they goes into liar, they goes into deceitfulness, goes into kleptomania. So kleptomania is for stealing money, because all carbons are money minded remedy. So they goes into making money by means of anything. So this is lacking of moral. Maliciousness, moral feeling want of. See, one sympathetic person in a Sora, morally bad goes into unsympathetic in syphilis. We have a carbo veg. Soric anger which cannot be expressed, but which can be expressed in syphilis as a rage. All carbons. And spit desire too. So this is what all carbons and carbonicums. Sexual fears. So they are very sexual. Carbons are very sexual. So they have a amorous feeling, effeminates, mannish. What I said in effeminates and mannish, because there is a confusion of their identity. The lasciviousness, lewdness. Again, this confusion of identity also lead to the morally attached to the same sex. That's why they goes into this form also, because of sexual sphere. Okay, so lascivious, lewdness, nymphomania and shamelessness. Will, so there is a timidity, but there may be positive will in a certain remedy. So they become either ambitious, business apt for. Most of money minded goes into businessman. So business apt for. The natrum carb is the only carbon which is very courageous. All are coward. So that natrum carb is a courageous positive remedy. All carbons are obstinate and optimistic. They have passions and ambitions. All carbons are introverted, but Baraita carb is extroverted. Baraita carb is extroverted. He cannot understand what is the gravity of situation. That's why they are being extroverted. They tell the truth to anyone. In the last lecture, Binita has given us that insight. What are the negative will of that carbons? So most of carbons are timid, coward and pessimistic. So we have all the carbon in this point. So we have to understand extroverted, introverted, will, moral. So out of that we have to differentiate the process. They are discouraged and the reaction is always taciturn, talk indisposed to, and finally we end up into state of indifference. Intellect. So in a good intellect level, there are memory active in a certain point, comprehension easy, concentration easy, idea is good, clear thoughts, precocity, but when this intellect is clouded, there is absent-mindedness, aversion to change, concentration difficult, concentration dull, finally land up into confusion, irresolution, cannot take decision out of it, mistakes makes in all, either in the calculations, numbers, time, sense, everywhere, and mathematics in their form. So in that all carbon is there. So this is what, when you have to understand, the intellect of carbon is very weak. General, so all carbons are average except strontium carb, industrious, baryta carb, Legra carb, natron carb, Mac carb, business minded, Legra carb, folic acid, graphites, anxiety, business about, so all baryta carb, Legra carb and natron carb. Sensitivity, so all, see, I am giving you just all carbons and carbonicums component, not just carbo veg or carbo animalis. So in that, sensitivity to criticism, sensitivity to music, sensitivity to noise, sensitivity to sensual impressions, sentimental, sensitivity to startling, sensitivity to grief, and horrible sad story affect profoundly. So all carbon has this sensitivity. Element from, most of element from, they are very anticipatory in nature, apprehensive in nature, so anticipation gets aggravated. Emotions, mostly the pride get aggravated. Mortification, especially in calcarea carb, carbo animalis, carbo veg, graphites and petroleum, because petroleum has angry remedy and there is a mortification which aggravates, and most of ailment never well since that acute illness. Low energy, so due to that low energy in all carbon, what the reactions the seed inclined to? Always they have weariness, they have weakness of the joint, they have sluggishness, rest ameliorates like brahmia. Reaction lack of relaxation physical, desire to lie down, lassitude, exertion physical aggravates, and indolence. So most I said is laziest and indolence kind of the process. So what physical generals? So at physical general, the connective tissue is affected. So in connective tissue, it affects on the blood vessels, bone complaints, necrosis of the bones, specifically necrosis of the femur in torsion calf. Okay, varicose vein, all carbons has a varicose vein, stagnation of the blood, lift up, aggravate the muscles and tendons, and shortness of the tendons. Why shortness? Fibrin excess. It shortens the tendons. Circulation. So in circulations, it produces coldness, end up into collapse. In a cancerous conditions, it produces metastatic lesions, and finally leads into loss of fluid in form of hemorrhage. So most of carbon has a hemorrhage, but it is a passive hemorrhage. We have a creosote. In creosote, insanity after hemorrhage. So when the person said that mental disorders, either a forgetfulness or some mental disorders or a delirious conditions after a certain acute hemorrhagic stage, like a piles bleeding, or may say female have menstrual disorders, acute bleeding, and after that they goes into this state, you can think of creosote, provided the indication of the creosote is rapidity, putridity, and offensiveness of the all discharge. Okay. General characteristic. So chilly, obesity, perspirations, milk aggravations, menses after aggravations, questions aggravations. So anywhere exertions which get aggravations, perspirations covering, perspiration offensive, all the discharge are offensive, either a mouth discharge or either a stool or either urine or either a perspiration, all are offensive. Salivation is profuse. Observations, when you find what kind of person comes into your clinic, the observation, when you think of this, the person which is bloated face, you can think of carbon. Sick expression on the face, toxic look of persons because of slowness of everything. Freckles, accumulations of the pigment on the skin. This is freckles. Whisker hairs. Indurations of the glands. The glands become hard and thick. Tongue is white and the person is obese. You can think of carbon. These are the entry point of the carbons. Lax fiber, obesity, speed is slow, stasis, hawk indisposed to, light desire for, sensitive, timid, mild, affecting on the tissue, no yielding. They are not yielding. Okay? Chilly, thirsty, right-sided, and offensive discharge. So when to think of carbon? So the extreme weakness since more than 1 year. Most of the time when we think of weakness out of proportion to illness, we first remedy thought is arsenic alpha. Okay. Second remedy, despair of recovery and weakness, soreness. But when there is an extreme weakness since more than 1 year, say for example, sir, COVID થયા પછી મને મજા જ નથી આવતી, weakness જ લાગે છે. This is extreme weakness since 1 year. You can think of carbon. Cardiopulmonary disease with a cold perspiration on a slight exertion. Most of time the person suffer from the cardiopulmonary disorders. So in that case, everything, either a CCF, pulmonary edema, pulmonary embolisms, or a patient have a tendency, past history of the pneumonia, person have a cardiomyopathy. So these all disorders will leading to slight exertions with a cold perspiration. You can think of carbon. Slow growing tumor in the brain or slow growing pathology, you can think of 2 વર્ષથી સાહેબ brain tumor છે પણ કાંઈ ફરક નથી પડતો. This is a slow growing, very slow growing. This carbon. Chronic acidity and indigestion 10 to 15 years. You know, slowness at the level of digestion, dyspepsia. So dyspepsia of 10 to 15 years. You can think of carbon. Low relapsing fever, not responding to the treatment. Fever low type. 99 આવે પણ ઠીક છે, દવા લે તો હાલ થાય, ના લે તો પણ હાલ થાય, ઠીક છે, ચાલ્યા કરે છે. Lower response. So most of the time tubercular type of personality. Proliferative tendency of the patient, large scale warts, cones, etc. So in a proliferative tendency, they are having a cancerous condition. The cancer person who suffer from long standing cancer, 10 years, 15 years, but patient never die. This is also carbon, because carbon is slow. You know, tumor which is slow, very important. So person cannot die out of this cancer. This is carbon. So we have so let's study carbo veg. So carbo veg, everything I have expressed in the whole carbon group or carbonicum group. So carbon is slow chronic disease, often major illness after acute life-threatening disease. So I said you that things, either dengue, malaria, pneumonia, typhoid. After that they goes into stasis or offensiveness and desire fanning, air in motions. So most of time there is a stagnation at the level of system. So in system stagnation there is a slowness of the system. Stagnation from any of the element after direct precipitation into syphilitic state. Okay, syphilitic state goes into psychosis. So life-threatening and result acute inflammatory disorders, we goes into stagnation. You can directly think of carbo veg. Okay, so mostly collapse, icy coldness of the whole body with respirations, cold but want fan. Anger, indifference to everything. It is the syphilitic state of carbons. It is not worth to come out from the bed because very indolent slowness of the physical exertion. So stagnation lead to the asthenic disposition. Asthenic means weakness. Listlessness, I don't want to move, I don't want to interrupt, or I don't want to be in an active part. So I become listlessness because of lack of energy. Sluggishness, too inert. Anxiety, aggravated in the dark. This is a soric stage. Loss of vitality with a cold, clammy, sweaty. So So vitality means the person goes into state of deterioration along with the concomitant symptoms, physical symptoms, cold, clammy, sweating. Clammy means when you touch the person, you feel the wetness, coldness and wetness. This is called cold and clammy sweat. Unfortunate feeling, 4-second feeling, everything is lost, given up, laxity at respiratory, CVS and GIT and all systems. So this is what 4-second feeling, everything is lost, finally land into syphilitic state. Mentally very timid, quiet, full of anticipations, angry but suppress it. Timidity keep anger within, which express in terms of sarcasm. And sarcasms, out of that sarcasm they make verses, and that verses is you had heard in the videos. No? So that is affection. Again they are historically very affectionate. High living, ailment from debauchery, mostly in the creosote. Old age and overlifting. Overlifting means any physical exertions can lead to the disturbances. Depletion, loss of fluid. Pressure of the clothes aggravates. Suppressed discharge aggravates. And extreme of the flatulence. When there is an extreme of flatulence with the slowness and anger get not expressed, you can directly think of carbo. Physically there is an internal burning, but external there is a coldness. So burning and a coldness, very opposite aspect of the physical PQRS. So the coldness is what type of coldness? Cold, clammy, perspiration. So that is a coldness. Again there is a cyanosis because of lack of circulations, blue networks of the veins of the skin. Shock after operations, thirsty, milk and fat aggravates. Fullness in the stomach. Why milk and fat aggravates? Every fat get digested very slowly. Carbohydrate digested very easily. Protein is the second one and the fat is the third one. So the slowness of digestion which aggravates because of fat. So the fat is aggravating. Fullness in the stomach interfere with the respiration. इतना गैस हो जाता है कि गैस की वजह से सांस लेने में दिक्कत हो जाती है. That is what the patient is expressing in terms of fullness of the stomach interfere with the respiration. So anticipations, side right, and it affect on the liver. So it act upon the venous circulation, especially the capillary, where the blood seems to stagnate, causing blueness, coldness, and leading to destructions of that. It is called as ecchymosis beneath the skin. So when there is ecchymosis, blueness, and the coldness, we can thought of the ophidia. Most of the time, because they have a hemorrhagic remedy. Okay, but at that time you can think of carbon also. Stasis, the excessive tiredness, weakness, profuse perspiration is the cold, clammy, blood circulation sluggish, stagnations, faintness, morning, rising, very important. Why? See, every rest gives emulations. When it started getting active, so at that time activation, the slowness of circulations is good, so they cannot produce to the brain and person goes into faint. So this is what faintness, morning, rising on. So when the person rise from that, faintness starts. So these very PQRS symptoms of carbons, carbohydrates. Faintness, sleep after. Why sleep after? Again it is the same. After waking from sleep, they have to go into activity. So that activity gets affected the slowness of circulation and lead to the faintness. So all the psychotic defects at work, fatness, slowness, fatness means the thickness, slowness, and in carbo hypopsychosis and less of elasticity. So Gibson comment on the mental and emotional level, the asthenic disposition manifests itself in the different way. The patient is listless, indolent, sluggish, indifferent, too inert to have interest in anything, and otherwise can be irritable and easily excitable with alternating moods. To understand everything, first and foremost thing, very important, indifferent to family, thus sarcasm. When you find these two things, no need to prescribe any remedy, prescribe carbo. Smoking, sarcasm, and indifferent to his family. फैमिली के सामने नहीं बोलेगा पर फैमिली को मारेगा. That is what Sarcasm and abrupts. So I said sarcasm. You all understand. Abrupt is unexpectedly sudden, terminating suddenly rather gradually. Okay. And sarcasm is something that the cutting off with the ironic remark intended to wound, a form of wit that is marked by use of sarcastic language and is intended to make its victim but of contempt or ridicule. So in that a different form is abrupt is just a cut off, intended to cut suddenly, terminate suddenly, express suddenly, whereas in a sarcasm it goes into indirect way. When to rule out CARBO-VEG? When the patient is very fast, active, sudden violent symptoms, CARBO-VEG is ruled out. Dull aching headache, never throbbing, then you have to rule out CARBO-VEG. If there is a throbbing, that means activity of blood vessels. And there is a throbbing headache, don't give CARBO-VEG. Red discoloration of the face with the anger or excitement, rule out the CARBO-VEG, because red means a plethora. It is an active circulation. There is no slowness of circulation. So rule out the no history of liver or gastric problem. Rule out CARBO-VEG specifically. There is always, sir, ये 20 साल से गैस का problem जाता ही नहीं है. So when the person is like feeling like this, you can rule in the CARBO-VEG. But person says, मुझे पेट की कोई शिकायत ही नहीं हुई आज तक, rule out the CARBO-VEG. Again, if persons wake up fresh in the morning, rule out the CARBO-VEG. Very important, because the rest gives everything, but when it goes into activity, it gets aggravated. Okay, so when there is a person is wake up fresh in the morning, you can rule out the CARBO-VEG. Arterial or profuse bleeding, again you can rule out the CARBO-VEG. There is a passive bleeding in the CARBO-VEG. Another remedy, CARBO ANIMALIS. We are going little bit faster, but just a revision of the everything. So what is CARBO ANIMALIS? There is a strong homesickness. Patient always says, हमारे ज़माने में ये था, हमारे ज़माने में वो था, वो मैं मिस कर रहा हूँ, मेरे ज़माने में ये था, वो था. So that is what the CARBO ANIMALIS is. Strong homesickness. Past time was good when I was young, and they have right now the feeling of 4 seconds. The person is very feeble, slow, painful process with the burning. So burning is the indications of CARBO ANIMALIS. When you think of cancer plus carbons, you can choose CARBO ANIMALIS. Cutting, burning pains, very important is the burning pain is a characteristic of the CARBO ANIMALIS, and more marked weakness than CARBO-VEG. So there is a more weakness in the CARBO ANIMALIS. So when you find cancers and malignancy plus carbon characteristic, you can directly think of CARBO ANIMALIS. Again, the brooder of the past things. So what Sarkar sir has mentioned in his book, that when you find cancer plus carbon state plus natrum state, a brooder or a homesickness, you can directly think of CARBO ANIMALIS. Uterine affection similar to sepia with a saddle on the nose, but it is a malignancy. So when you think this is sepia, cancer of the uterus, sepia, saddle end of the nose, everything is like this, and sepia will not work, you can think of CARBO ANIMALIS. Foul, acrid discharges. All the discharges are foul. Sluggish circulation and distended veins. Straining by lifting. Emptiness not emulated by eating. Stony hardness of the gland. When there is a stony hardness of the gland, it indicates cancer. Clear cut indications of the cancer. Metastatic lymph node. Okay. So stony hardness. Which are the another remedy of stony hardness? Calcarea floor. Stony hardness of the glands. Another remedy is Scrofularia nodosa. Stony hardness of the gland. When the gland is pliable and soft, the remedy plus cancer, and there is a cancer plus gland is soft and pliable, the remedy is Lepis albus. Lepis albus is combined of the silica, fluoride and calcarea. Silica, calcarea, fluoride. That was the Lepis albus. Okay, it is a remedy for the cancer. But cancer with the soft, pliable lymph glands. Very important. Okay. Another remedy for the cancer is serenum. When there is a cancer plus worm infestation, you can directly think of serenum. Serenum is for the hardness of the cancer. Sarcoma. We have a graphites. So CARBO ANIMALIS is gone. Are you getting me? What? Carbon plus weakness plus tendency to malignancy plus sepia-like wall symptoms plus malignancy, offensiveness of the discharge and hardness of the gland. That's all for the CARBO ANIMALIS. Is it? Graphites. Graphites, we have GRAPHITES. Everything is in very simple way. The all discharge is gluing. See what happened. We have understood the two part of the protein in carbons. One is the elastin and one is the fibrin. So in a gluey discharge is because of albumin. So all albumin is excreted more and more and more into graphites, which leads to the gluey discharge, honey-like colors of the discharge. Again, when you find honey-like color of the discharge, you can another remedy think of is mesarium. Mesarium has also gluey discharge, thick crust-like discharge. Below that thick crust there is a full of pus. It is a mesarium. Okay. So gluey discharge, riding carriage aggravated. The hearing is only ameliorated by riding. The rest every symptom is. Why riding carriage aggravation? Because graphites cannot adjust the motions. Because any exertions bring on aggravation. So the motions got aggravated at the level of organ of quality in the ear, and that lead to the disturbances of the otoliths. And that otolith is not acting properly, so it lead to the riding in carriage aggravations. So most of time. But the hearing is only ameliorated by riding, because the otolith gets stimulate the organ of quality and it stimulate ultimately the vestibular system. That's why a very important modality in graphites is hearing, hardness of hearing ameliorated by riding in carriage, whereas all the symptoms are aggravated by riding in carriage. Are you getting me? This is a pathology. A represent the mental aspect of anxiety, anticipations, and the reactions is always weeping. So always element from anticipation. Again, what is another syphilitic reaction of graphites? Laugh on reprimand. Very important. The child is very insensitive and they laugh on reprimand. This is a syphilitic reaction of graphites. The pulsatilla-like symptoms. P represent changeable in wavering mind, indecision, inconstancy, wandering pains and everything. Again, fibrin excess. So fibrin excess lead to the hardness, thickness, everything in the body. At the level of mind is soft. So what is the very different aspect of understanding? Indolence, all carbons have indolence, aversion to work, timid and tumor, eruptions, thick, scaly, cracks and fissures, and the mental aspect is always sarcastic. Very simple person, gentleness, timid, bashful, pleasant, quiet, unassuming, matter of the fact people, uncomplicated, pure, tend to say what they think. This is what you have to understand. They are a simple person, like Baraita. You can think like mild है, timid है, changeable है, indecisive है. तो पहला दिमाग में आएगा Baraita है, तो Sitila है, but it is something like. But the pathology is something hard. Mental level is very slow, soft. So you can think it is a controversy. So when you find mind and body is not acting properly, you can think of this graphites. So what is graphites versus calcarea? So more sensitive than the calcarea, graphites. Why? Because graphites is component of two things. One is the iron component, one is the carbon component. So due to iron component, there is a lot of sensitivity. Graphites is a left-sided remedy. So there is more sensitiveness than the calcarea, more emotional than the calcarea, more introspective than the calcarea. Because calcarea is very extroverted and very esteemed kind of personality, more shiny than the calcarea, more earthy means down to earth personality than the calcarea, and more deep acting than the calcarea. So it is more than calcarea. Some of the glimpse of graphite is softness like pulsatilla but more deeper. Remain quietier even in a familiar companies. Charitable like pulsatilla, natrum, calcarea, somewhere between natrum and calcarea carb. You can think of graphites. Irresolution and moodiness in disharmony in relationship. Graphites, pulsatilla, calcarea had disharmony for long time. किसी को disharmony नहीं चाहिए. So natrum, ignatia, sepia, staphy, graphites, pulsatilla and calcarea all wants harmony in the family. Okay. Expression, they express weeping and emotions. They are easily affected. Magnetism ameliorates. They are present to us as obesity. So graphites is, we have thoughts, fat, flabby, chilly, obese and constipated. This is something called as graphites with the hardness of the skin complex. Okay. Pain shifted from one part laying on thick hard skin, gland, eyelids, nails, scars, callosity and stool. So when there is a hardness at the level of everything because of excess of fibrin, you can think of graphites. To rule out graphites, you have to touch the hand of the graphites. If there is a softness, don't prescribe graphites. Excoriation, cracks, fissure, droopy eyelids, hunger, aggravates, niggling appetite. So how we differ from the graphites from the other carbons? So all carbons are right-sided, graphites is left-sided. All carbons are non-sensitive. Graphite is sensitive because of iron element into that. And ferrum is sensitive to noise, sensitive to external disharmony, sensitive to contradictions and everything. So same way there is a sensitivity. And there is a sensitivity, that's why their emotions become very sentimental. They are full of grief. They have a changeable mental state and their reactions is like pulsatilla, weeping type. Okay, so this is what something different than the carbon, because graphite is all carbons are mostly non-emotional, slow, sluggish and stable kind of their understanding. Graphite is, so this is what I am telling you, that the carbon property: slow, chilly, timid, indolent, sarcastic, fat, round, hardness. Whereas the ferrum property is sensitive, offended easily, left-handed, pseudo plethora, before and during headache, and sensitive to odor. Okay. So how can you find in clinic? So in a clinic you can find a fat, flabby, chilly, large, hard notice stool, plus glutinous discharge, plus hardness, roughness of the hand when shaking, plus thick, crippled, deformed nail, plus cracks at the mucocutaneous junctions, especially rule outing the nitric acid and condurango. When you find a cancer plus cracks at the mucocutaneous junctions at the corner of the mouth, the first remedy thing is condurango. The scaly dandruff, crack behind the ears. So crack behind the ears suggests it is a remedy for PS, psoriasis. Scales on the eyes, obese with a long standing grief. So these are the clinical indication. Another clinical indication: person is very chronically sad, with a grief, with a weeping, timid, anxiousness and indecisive, like pulsatilla and thuja. Like pulsatilla and thuja, but chilly, left-sided, thirsty, physically tired. Again, very important. The tendency of physical is very important. Patient always says, सर इसको बहुत वो आता है, बगासी, क्या बोलते हैं? उबासी. Oh, tendency to yawn. So this tendency to yawn means, what is yawn? The pathophysiology behind yawn is you are taking a deep breath and you are giving oxygenation to the brain. So this yawning, that the oxygenation to the brain is going lower down. That's why you are starting yawning more and more and more. So this is what tendency to yawn. And tendency to stretch means the laxness of the fiber which cannot help to restore the circulation. So they want always stretching. So once the person who have tendency to stretch and tendency to yawn, you can think graphites. Tendency to blue-black discoloration of the nail. People who hate flowers and hate music, even though sensitive, they hate music and they hate flowers. And timid but fast sarcastic remark, these are the graphites. Very important aspect of late menses in a young girl. It is a PCOD, very important remedy in nowadays, the PCOD. Indolent, though intelligent. Very intelligent but indolent. Young children, they are very insolent, impertinent and laugh at reprimand because it is in a syphilitic state they goes into this state. Very rude to elders, even abusive to the elders and parents. Fat, flabby boy with undress on waist. इतना पेट ऊपर ऐसे रहता है. This is what something very important. Tremendous sexual desire but body does not support. Physically weak make the person desire for magnetism. Throat symptoms, it's okay, fine. So when you find hardness of the hand, you can think of this remedy. Natrum has also hardness of the hand. Sulfur has the hardness of the hand with the hotness. Ammonium carb has also hardness of the hand. Calcarea fluor has also hardness of the hand, and graphite is also hardness of the hand. This is because of excess of fire. What is the need of the graphites? They can't bear disharmony, so they want safety into the environment and family. That's why their need is safety. So balance of carbohydrate, protein and fat. What I am saying is something that the sweet causes nausea, aversion to fat, and fat is thrown in the urine. This is what something we have seen our repertory. Sweet causes nausea, aversion to fat, and fat is thrown in the urine. So what happens? Carbohydrate food for the brain. So intelligent brain require more carbohydrate so that the brain cell functions well. The graphite is busy in synthesizing more of albumin, protein part, and gluten that requires more protein. So carbohydrate and fat are thrown out of or not taken in because they need only protein. Okay, and that's why they have sweets, carbohydrate aggravates, because I don't need that. And aversion to fat. Why I say that when fat gets inside, it cannot digest it, and it cannot digest it, it can goes out to the excretion. So it is fat is thrown into urine. Okay, so graphites develop aversion to sweet or fat. So when you find psora goes into syphilis, the anxiety goes into anguish in ladies if menses not appear, PCOD. Okay, weeping, sadness goes into despair, sensitivity goes into insensitivity resulting into laughing at reprimand. This is a psoric stage goes into syphilitic state in the patient. This is graphites. Another remedy, petroleum. We are going a little bit faster. So petroleum. So petroleum is what? Angry remedy, fast remedy, unstable, easily excited, easily vexed, timid, affected easily, confused, irresolution, quarrelsome after alcoholism, inconsolable anxiety of flea who left him alone, and position concern. Very important aspect of petroleum is when you find the person having the feeling that I need to must settle the affair unless I would die in a nearest future, and having must hurry in their any of the pathology, you can just prescribe petroleum, you will get wonderful result. Must settle the affair, hurry, must settle the affairs. Okay. There is alternating state, so it is a dullness, excitement, exuberance, excitement, timidity, excitement. So it is something called hysterical kind of presentations. Petroleum, same riding aggravation. I said riding aggravation also affect the petroleum also. So there is a motion sickness, tremendous dryness. There is a tremendous dryness lead to the cracks. So the crack is affected, especially in the mucous membrane, especially on the skin. Again, there is a discharge, as all carbon has offensive discharge. Again, there is a slowness of circulation, so mood heals slow. There is a very important aspect of differentiation is all carbons are slow, but petroleum manifestation is very sudden and fast. So petroleum is fast because petroleum is lack of psychosis, psora to syphilis. Okay, so that is why the suddenness of manifestation. The skin is very over perspiration on one part, bloody perspiration. Again, bloody perspiration, we have a ophidia in that remedy. Crotalus pedis. So miasmatic journey. So miasmatic journey directly from sora to syphilis. Always, because in a carbon miasmatic journey, sora, violent sora goes into psychosis for a long standing period. Whereas in petroleum, sora directly goes to syphilis. What happened when soric eruption gets suppressed? It goes directly into syphilis. So it started bleeding, cracks in the hand, car sickness. So car sickness, because of intolerance to car in the riding, is destroyed. Okay. So again, alternating state, it is a hysterical kind of state. So oversensitivity goes into syphilitic state. Mentally goes into confusion of identity, direction, location, and exertion. So this is what destruction of intellect. From sora get destruction of the intellect. So intellect lead to the locality. Cannot recognize the known place. Cannot recognize the same street. Even cannot recognize who is sitting in me, beside me. Or having a perception that someone is sitting, there are maybe two babies in my bed. Or there is someone beside me. So these are the perception because of clouded intellect. Okay. Again, they goes into destruction of their identity. So sora gets distracted into the identity, so that lead to the mannish identity, the mannish behavior of the girl, and there is a false perceptions which lead to that body is double, the body is made up of wood, and someone is lying next to her bed. So when you find a mannish habit of the girl, we have a fixed remedy in our repertory. So when you find hot remedy, it is natramur, platina, and fluoric acid, and it is a chilly remedy, carbo, veg, petroleum, and fluoric acid. So what is that difference between carbo, veg, and petroleum? So carbo, veg is extremely dull, whereas petroleum has lot of emotions. Carbo, veg is unemotional, petroleum has emotion, which is anger and very easily angered. Carbo, veg is slow, whereas petroleum is frightened easily. Single direction remedy, quarrelsome remedy, paroxysmal affections, no changeability, sorosyphilitic, alternating state, changeability is there, hysterical kind of, genetic tendency to produce looseness, okay, whereas there is genetic tendency to produce destruction at the level of skin in form of thickening, hardness, and cracks, and at the level of mind it produces destruction of the intellect. So mostly the perception has changed, and the symptoms and emotion always alternate and come suddenly and go suddenly. It is a slow remedy, it is a fast remedy. Very important difference. Creosote. So creosote has the 5 component: rapidity, putridity, hot burning, corrosive discharge, contradictory symptoms, easy bleeding tendency, chilly, old looking, lean, and restless. When you find in a repertory tall remedy. So tall remedy has, we have a tuberculinum, phosphorus, creosote, calcarea phos. So when you find phosphorus like constitutions, but very very offensive, very fast, very rapid destruction goes into syphilitic state, you can think of creosote. Again, when there is an angry phosphorus, phosphorus is very affectionate, lovey-dovey kind of personality, but when you find an angry type of phosphorus with destructions and a cancer, you can think of creosote. So rapidity of, so in rapidity there is a rapid emaciation, decays of the teeth, all disease progress very fast. So again this is a fast carbon. Petroleum is also fast carbon, sudden manifestation. Creosote is also fast carbon, progressing fast. So syphilis is very fast in this creosote. The blood ooze is very fast, anemia very fast. So you can find out anemia, aplastic anemia. Putridity in all the discharge. So it can be a nasal discharge, leukorrhea, urine, ulcers, bad odor from the decayed teeth, or any of the excretion of body. It can be diarrhea, it can be stool, anything. So it is putridity. Discharge, along with there is a hotness of the discharge which burns and corrode the particular part mostly. So that lead to the soreness, burning, excoriation of the particular part. Redness is indications. It can be anywhere of the orifice, any orifice. saliva get corroding, so it may be cracks here and there is a redness in here. If the female having a leukorrhea, so there is a labia like minora, majora get corroding and there is a redness and everything. Okay. If there is a nasal discharge, so there is a nares are corroding redness like erythrophilus, corroding discharges. Okay. So this is what something burning, corroding discharge. Bleeding. It acts directly on the blood vessels, it destroys the blood vessels because of the fibrin and elastin was destroyed and that lead to the easy hemorrhage. So it would bleed easily, gum bleed easily, cervix bleed on touch. So when you find cervix bleed on touch, person says that every time I used to have a sex, I need to have a bleeding. It is called cervical erosion and it is a pre-cancerous state of cervix. So most of the time when you find person, lady comes to you and say that whenever we have a coitions, I had a bleeding after that. That is something called as cervical erosion. Okay. Acute hemorrhage followed by insanity, very important. I said you earlier. Forgetfulness after epistaxis. What are the contradictory symptoms of creosote? Like ignatia, the pain, dysmenorrhea, aggravate after menses. Dysmenorrhea it happened before menses, but it always aggravate after menses. So flow when lying down. So there is no gravity, law of gravity is here. Flow when lying down, when standing and walking, flow stop. This is contradictory like ignatia. Urinate only when lying down. But when standing, no urination comes. Again, she had a dreams of urination. She said she feels that I had a dreams of urination, but actually there is a urination. So there is no control over that. It wet the beds. Okay. Again same, stop, bring, start. Menses intermittent stops and restart in a full flow. So patient comes sir 1 મહિનાથી પીરિયડ આવે છે હમણાં 2 દી પહેલા બંધ થયું પાછું ચાલુ છે પાછું એવું ને એવું. So that is what stop, bring, start. Okay. Same way all the in the healings also ulcer heals. આપણને એવું લાગે heal થઈ ગયું છે પાછું ulcer reopen. Okay. So creosote is indicated in old, scrawny, wrinkled face, emaciated, chilly woman who having a very bad odor from the body, having a tendency to the cancer, especially cancer of the cervix, who treat leukorrhea, offensive urine and ill-urinated urine with the cough. When they enter into clinic, your clinic becomes so offensive. This is what creosote. Again, the need of the creosote, all carbon need is safety. Small children, so all small children, in small children when you think of creosote, there is a decay of the teeth. Teeth decay as soon as it appears. There is a bleeding gums, shrieking, thin, scrawny, old looking infants. Cry from sunset to sunrise. Okay. Another carbon is lapis, granite, marble. So what is lapis, granite, marble? It is a hardened silica. It is a rock. Granite has very important aspect is mental level, very indolent but very haughty kind of personality. All the carbon are timid, but granite is very haughty. Very haughty. Haughty, introverted, unemotional. Only emotion is anger. Very dominating kind, hard-hearted persons, no feelings, very cruel, and nothing moves. Everything is hard. So the granite is itself hard. So at mental level there is so much hardness. So only emotion is anger, no attachment at all. Very haughty, dominating kind of personality. Miasm, hyperpsychosis. There is an excess of fibrin. So fibrin made them tough, the part, and that becomes so hard. So all the complaints become, all the symptoms become harder. So what is that hardness? Hardness mostly on the glands. So hardness of the glands can be found in calcarea floor, baryta mur, conam, tarantula, granite, etc. So what is the difference between granite and marble? Both are from the same family. So granite has more haughtiness, more contemptuous, reproaches others like platina. Rock solid, unmovable like nitric acid, dominating and dictatorial like lycopodium. Whereas marble has ego, delusion, he is a king. Delusion, he is a king. Both have money and emotion. So granite has lot of money, lot of ego, but they have indifference to money, indifference to status, even relations, and no emotions. Whereas marble is very awareness regarding the money, desire more than riches or luxury at the cost of others, desire more than needs. So this is what marble. Stability, the granite is more stable, there is no anticipations. Lap marble has a capriciousness and more anticipations. Introvert and extrovert, granite is introverted, lap marble is also introverted, but there is a rubric called as communicative expansive wherein it is given, it is communicative expansive. Kerasis, lap marble like kerasis and a psychotic remedy, whereas granite had kerasis and psychosyphilitic remedy. So that's all for the end of whole carbon series and Carbonicum from my side. Thank you so much for patience listening.